by the powers of Grayskull. Hey, yo, this is WNDC in DC. And I really want to talk about this whole concept of love. Of the love that we hear, that we see when people express how they crave some image, fashion, form of what they would describe as love. They want to not just love, but be in love. They want to have their cake and eat it too. They want that soul mate love. They want that to care for and to be cared for, to be loved and to love. The pinnacle and the glue of what most people value relationships. You know, you got love for your peoples, you got love for your family. You love being in love. You want to be in love again. You're afraid that you'll never find love the way you crave love. The fear of almost getting it or think you got it and then being denied it, and therefore once again having to struggle through the acceptance of failure. Love. It's the one word that nobody wants to take out of any vows or any religion or any form of fashion of anything that we call spiritual. And yet, love is kind of like how the heart that pumps our bloods doesn't break when we have a broken heart, but we feel it to be almost physically. The brain is yet an organ, and yet our mind, we believe to exist in it enough that many of us never use the majority of that organ in the operating system of what we call the mind. Love. Wanting to make love, wanting to express and be involved and included in the act of it to such a degree that the word itself doesn't give it and yet I get it. Rather you're a romantic or you're a realist or anything, everybody wants love. Some people don't like to have to get into that love talk because it gets a little too mushy. Some people don't necessarily feel that it should be a requirement in partnership or whatnot. Not that it should be non-existent, but it should not hold as much energy as most people put into the concept of love. Love is identified by each and every person's unique impression as to how they identify that. Got it. That thing that, yeah, that's it. That's what I want right there. if I got the ultimate of what it was for God so loved the world that he, and yet no greater love than if you loved me, then you wouldn't hurt me. Uh, and yet, uh, all these things that I'm speaking of are coming from a personal basis, almost in a fashion where in this new society that we're existing in now, we have a over than average amount of people who um, are rather habitually single or available, uh, all in the quest for an indulgence of a certain instinct that they crave, love. Some people are so desperate and needy to find that someone could do something for them and just they would just give it all up, and people would be like, that's not love, and they're going, well, it was just too easy to fool them into it. Now they're struggling with the embarrassment, the discomfort of, damn, I was in such a frenzy for something that I really believed that that's what it was. And I hate being a fool. I hate being played. I hate being lied to. I hate being cheated on. And yet love in its essence should be something that is not a personal possession. Love is the admiration and adornment of something other than yourself, that yourself has had some form or fashion of involvement in achieving the image into which they are adorned or in love with. And yet, what I find most awkward is what's more uncomfortable, wondering if you could handle loving someone who doesn't love you, or wondering if you could handle going through the motions of love for somebody who doesn't love you back just because you want to do it and they're going to let you do it to them even though they don't want it. Love is something that you try to hope that it's going to turn into at some time, but not necessarily realize that part of our struggle, our conflict, personally speaking, is each and every person's indulgence in how they execute what they feel the rules and regulations that should apply to achieving such a thing as love. I was a good person to you, and I can't believe that you would do me like that when I gave you all of my love. And yet, the love that each one of us believes to be as true and as pure as it is, we struggle with the belief that that strong intensity of what would be love would make it impossible and capable of anyone not knowing what it was enough. And yet, we have the instincts of, it's too good to be true. I always mess up a good thing. It's like I don't want to be happy. I want to be loved. I want to love others, but, love is like service. The kind of service where somebody that you love or you care for may be in need or requirement of something that they may not even be aware would be beneficial in their existence. And therefore, the gesture to service becomes two-part. A, the intent of them finding it to be beneficial, and B, the act of doing it whether they see it or not. I do it because I love loving. I love loving so much that my biggest problem is I get so caught up in loving to love that I tend to overly indulge people who shouldn't have deserved the love that I gave them. And yet, we get so bludgeoned with disappointment that we lose our instinct of how to do the dance of love, our love language. We become manipulative in our own inability to be communicative. Uh, the love that we wish to have is something that we can brag about how well your love looks on them. And yet, we're seldom held accordingly to the audacity of what would soon to become a love lost. Because we can always blame the person who then what portion of it we have slipped upon. Gotten so caught up in our own that we miss the mere fact that our existence existed because and due to the existence that is benefited by your existence with them and them with you. With more of a purposeful manner that achievements become involved, engrossed, and entitled love that is built upon. This place was built upon love, and yet at certain points in times we lose sight of the mere fact that as we speak of it in our passion and our disgust and our disappointment and our desires, we lose focus of something that just the act of accountability in this concept may help some of you because it's been steady on my mind when it's been as difficult to find a love interest as most people who would rather have it in any other image than myself. I'm good with that. Love that all-seeing, all-knowing faith of all faiths that you can live off love. You can stand out on a faith on strictly love in itself. For he laid down his life, for they know not what they do. And yet, it would probably be hard for Jesus to find a date if he came back and had to be on OK Cupid. Just because they were, oh my God, look at you. You're too good to be true. I just don't believe this any other faith that walking out on faith, that walking by faith and not by sight, that love is an act that is not intended to be driven by selfish desires or nature, but by a desire, a passion to prove. People say, do you believe in love at first sight? Well, You know, I believe that the biggest conflict that men and women have is that men lead with the desire to, hey man, let me get it. Let me make love to you. Let me kick it at this, that, and the women. They're like, well, is that all you want? Well, can't you at least date me or something else first? And in an odd, awkward kind of manner, if you really played with that analogy, it would be awfully gangster if a suitor would come and say, yo, man, let me see what you're working with. And you go, bam! And they go, okay. This is what you get. No man within his right would miss that if it was what it was. You know, might get a little extra. Oh, I just wanted a night out. I didn't need this big sheding. Yeah, baby, you know, but you are, oh my God, I don't know what I'd do without you. I just, that right there, that's it. That's all I want is you. And yet, we live in an existence now that the older we get, we actually have people who are so asexual that they actually are like, you know, if I, you know, could just find a man who's not all sex crazy, and yet part of their home operating system still identifies the love that they still want by what at best we find in making love. That moment when neither one of us were formally trained practitioners in the art of love making enough to actually create the intensity that at best most of us as adults can admit. You know, it was good enough to be something that you'd love to do more often as a corrupter in a lot of the times that we found ourselves unfairly bludgeoning others to allow you to make them the love interest that you crave, and yet it's like queens wanting a king to serve them. But nobody has a queendom. And yet, it's okay. In today's society, you know, we don't have gender roles. We still like to play too much with them. Like we were June and Ward Cleaver. I don't know about you, but I don't think they'd cast me very well in that part. Sometimes the love that we have should be like the love that we have for amusement parks, where we want that amusement park so bad that we're ready to run up to that doggone gate and jump the doggone fence and just run on it. This and the other. But the more that we fail, the more that we accumulate what we call disappointments, the more that we feel that we are incapable of doing it. You know, just don't be running out there, this, that, and the other. Nobody said you need to just blindly run out in the street, but it's good to look both ways and then do so, or go out on faith that you got the thing timed enough that no weapon formed against you will prosper. Love. I'd love to experience the ability to love people and be loved by people, just because it's such a simple and yet complex act. Kind of like loving to be out on the dance floor with thousands of people all dancing together in such a manner that there's no conflict. I love that fellowship. And yet, sharing that love. The best way you know that you got good love is when you can see the people that you love enjoy it more. Man, you thought they did. Wow. This is just too easy. I love it. You know, we really are some really uptight people that really honestly give ourselves less credit and our ability to actually go out on more of that faith, being that we are supposedly, especially people of color, culturally attached to some form of creators that enhanced us with this spiritual strength that we are allowing ourselves to be negligent of due to science. You know, that's okay, baby. Just take these little things and go on about your business. And it takes a fool to learn that love don't love nobody. And yet, everybody loves the thought of finding true love and keeping it, or at least being able to remember when you had it. You good?